for people who are committing sins against humanity or their fellow man after, they need to be contained when they're first resurrected, but when they see what's happening around them, they might turn around. They might start thinking, this is true. This is the truth. This sounds good. If they don't, then they'll be gone. Basically,
they'll be gone like they die on the spot. Or you said an eye for an eye. Like, will you guys put them to death?
No, it's not likely we would be used as executioners, but
not likely.
Again, we don't know.
Or just like the prison thing, like maybe there would just be a prison.
Well, it won't be as gory and as horrible as it's kind of awful now, isn't it, when people, I can't think that, when people die, when people are put to death now for a crime, heinous ones who do terrible things, they have a needle or something like that and they die. It's a horrible thing. I mean, the electric chair used to be awful and the way they used to put people to death in the past, so that will not be the case. So as God resurrected someone, or the power, that you use to raise people from the dead, just as much use that power to put them back to sleep.
So like
there won't be anything gory or anything that you'll need to put the gun to their head and shoot them or anything. There'll be nothing like that, because the promise, does that sound like paradise to you, when there's still going to be guns and weapons of killing of any sort?
Well, I don't know if this is sounding like the pictures. Okay, let me just summarize it so that you can tell me if I'm wrong or I missed something. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
That's how I always do, so I make sure I understand something. Okay, so when we die, we're acquitted of our sins, and so when we die, we have like a new, we're clean, a new start, right? And then we get resurrected to a paradise, and that means everyone. So like even someone like Stalin or something, and then they get to be taught what's right and what's wrong for a certain amount of time. And then if they don't want what's right, they will get killed. And
they'll have to be done away with.
They'll have to be done away with.
But they will have to stop living, yes.
Killed,
because it
die.
won't be tolerated. No wickedness will be tolerated.
Right. But he is resurrecting people that were wicked.
Well, all of us have sin. You see, there's a difference.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, there's a difference between inherited sin and willful sinning, right? So, somebody who willfully keeps, taking the life of others, or because life is sacred, there's a price to pay. It was life for life, and so that's a bad sin. Okay, anybody who commits murder, even under the courts of today, in some places they still die. They're given life imprisonment or whatever right now in our country, but that's the scriptural principle: is a life for a life.
Right.
And but because they're acquitted of that, now you mentioned these extraordinary, terrible people who have caused all kinds of harm to others. Yeah. And there are instances in the Bible where, like King Manasseh in the nation of Israel, he committed so many terrible things and caused harm to people. Right. Even then, God forgave him. Right. But the thing is, it is up to Jehovah whether a person is forgiven, because he will be able to discern, the intentions of the heart. You mean
in the paradise part?
Yeah, or if the scriptures point out that if persons have sinned what they call against the spirit, that is a sin incurring death. So there are certain ones that we don't know and can't say conclusively that
If they didn't know right or wrong or had been taught about God, how are they sinning against the Spirit?
Yeah, you got it. Now the difference is if they've been taught about God and they knew better. Even Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." That was the Roman soldiers. It was the ones that put him to death with his own people, the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of those could have been, and we don't know what the Bible speaks about sinning against the Spirit, but they would be very few compared to the whole world of mankind that didn't know God, right?
So like how paradise-like is it really going to be for us if, let's say, we are dealing with all of that, though? Like, let's say you're resurrected and, like, the person who murdered you is also resurrected. And then, like, how is that working?
Yes, that's a very good question. And this is where other qualities have to come into play. And it's not an easy thing. Even now, we are encouraged, right, scripturally, to be forgiving. Okay, but there has to be a basis for forgiveness. And if we're holding bitter resentment even now toward a person, that will destroy our life too.
Right.
Because we're letting them control our life. So this is where it comes down to, again, getting to know Jehovah, Christ Jesus, and the Bible principles, and allowing those to move us to have these, the forgiveness and the understanding, and that will fade into insignificance in the when we live for thousands of years, when we live in paradise, and paradise is.
But if you were actually resurrected with your murderer, like, it wouldn't fade that quickly.
No,
especially if he was still like that.
Well, if he was like that, but then again, justice will be done because
he'll be in one of those, like, he'll be contained somehow before he has a chance to re-murder me, and then he can learn what's right.
Well, yeah, and that's right. And if a person's of the right heart, and we're forgiven by God, then if others are forgiven by God for big, worse sins, then that is left really to Jehovah. But He will not forgive a person who is not, is not coming around to living, who's not suited for paradise. Who's not suited.
But they'd have to learn how to be suited for paradise.
Absolutely.
So while they're learning, they are in the prison.
Well, when you say prison, they'll be contained one way or another. They won't be let loose they won't be let loose just to
run around.
Cause havoc over again. Well, what's the use of resurrection in that case?
Yeah. Okay, so it's like a paradise with, like, a containment camp for murderers and stuff.
Could be, but I can't. I'd be going beyond what he's written if I said.
Just like logically, we are assuming that.
Well, logically, there'll be some kind of a containment. It will be, let's put it as controlled.
A controlled environment for the criminals to all be resurrected in.
Yeah, to protect others. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and then by the end of that 1,000 years, they'll be
either killed or allowed out of the containment unit.
No, because they won't be in the containment for 1,000 years. If they're resurrected like 200, 300 years after Armageddon, so if they're resurrected 200, 300 years after, then they're not going to live for 700 years being contained and causing, and having that potential for havoc. Obviously, Jehovah will judge them.
He will what?
Jehovah will judge them. In other words, God will judge them.
So the judgment comes to people at certain times, not at the end of the 1,000 years.
Exactly.
Oh.
The final judgment, the scriptures talk about the final judgment at the end of the 1,000 years, when everyone's been resurrected that are in the grave. The graves will be emptied, right? Basically. Excuse that expression, but everybody who's died will be resurrected on the merits of Christ's sacrifice. Then,
I thought it was on the merit of them dying.
Well, on the merits of Christ's sacrifice, otherwise they couldn't get a resurrection. Because
I thought when they died, their sins were wiped away.
Yes, exactly. So they will get a resurrection. Yeah,
Okay.
but only because Jesus died for them.
Oh.
If Jesus hadn't given his life as a ransom to buy back what Adam lost, then we would have no hope for the future.
Okay, so some people are dying before the end of the 1,000 years.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
But if okay. I mean, that's going to be difficult. I mean, if your son has to die again, because I mean that sucks, I guess. Like if let's say you have a son that rejects God twice, I guess. I mean, it's going to be a rough first 1,000 years, I guess, in paradise.
Well, let's put it like this: if we are obviously, if we have a child, we have a son, daughter, or our family members, we desire them all to live in paradise because there's no more sickness, no more death, right? No more pain.
Well, there is death, though, right?
Whether it's your son or my son or whoever it is, if they're causing pain to themselves, to others, and causing, grief, and they don't, they're saying they don't want life in paradise, because Jehovah's not going to force the person to live in paradise. They don't want to be there.
Right, so they'll die.
Yes, for your protection, and my protection, and everybody else's, that live on this earth,
he'll take them out.
They'll have to go. And that's hard to swallow when we're emotional over our child, because in some people's eyes, their child can't do wrong. And if we've got that attitude, then we need some counselling. We need some readjustment, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because it doesn't matter who it is.
But when you said there'll be no more death, there is death in the paradise, obviously, because if there's no more accidental death, or no more death because of your own. No, there is death because of sin, because if the murderer wants to keep murdering, he's going to be put to death.
Well, if he still has that inclination, he won't be allowed to murder. But if he has that inclination and he's not got it out of his system, if he sees that what is right, then that's fine. But if he doesn't, and he doesn't prove himself, then so there'll be need for
some death.
Action, yeah.
Okay, so it's a paradise because you said there's no more death, no more pain, but like there's a little bit of death and a little bit of pain, obviously, right?
So during the 1,000 years, it won't be due to their inherited sin and imperfection during the 1,000 years.
It'll just be like choice.
Death. It'll be a swift, 1 minute you're there, next minute you're gone. That's judgment, it won't be, and then after the 1,000 years have ended, when we have the same standing with Jehovah God that Adam had as perfect people, then there is no more.
Then there's no more death.
None of that's all gone. There's no more. The resurrection's ended. People have been judged during that 1,000-year reign as to whether they're going to have life or not, whether they want life or not, whether they're going to accept Jehovah's standards or not, and have that desire to live in paradise, or those who don't want to. To us it sounds ridiculous. We always figure that people would love to live in a place where there's no more.
People would love to live in a place where like you have a garden and like anyone who wants to murder you is in a containment unit?
I'm sorry?
Like people like you were saying, like obviously people would want to live in a place where they have gardens and like nice houses, and like anyone who's trying to murder you is in a containment unit.
Well, containment unit, they're gone. They're not contained anymore. Their life is ended.
Oh, you mean after the 1,000 years? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I thought you were talking about before that.
No, so that's the order of events in the scriptures. I've told you a lot of things that are.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
You're very inquisitive, and you seem to be catching on very well. And
Well, it's interesting. I'm glad I asked because, I was kind of wondering what was going to happen with all these people being resurrected, and some people, I mean, they're being resurrected, they're criminals, and or people that have murdered you, and you be resurrected with your murderer, like what's going to go on? Like, it sounds wild and crazy, but like you explain it, like they'll be contained in containment units or something, and people will go in and teach them. Is that what and if they don't want it, then they'll just like kind of evaporate on the spot.
Yeah, because we go into the prisons now, and the people that are, in prison, and we'll volunteer. We go in and we teach people. All Jehovah's Witnesses volunteers, and we go in and teach them. No matter what country you're in, and we'll endeavour in any situation. We've got ones that go into prisons, we've got ones that go into hospital and encourage others, and our ministry is global right now, and so that will pass on through. We teach Bible principles,
but
because our Creator will last eternally.
Okay, but just the difference in the 1,000 years is that if they reject it and they want to do bad, they basically get like evaporated. Is that right?
Well, you got some good words to describe.
Maybe you don't evaporate it. You didn't use that word. You used a different word, like 1 minute here, next minute gone. So I just said evaporate. Is that a good word?
Yeah, that's right. And you know what?
Okay, evaporated.
We'll be saying, thank goodness.
Thank goodness that guy was evaporated.
Yeah, exactly. We will, because especially if they're bad. Now we'll be saying, we'll be also saying, thank goodness if we see some respond and they see the truth and they turn around and they will become citizens of the new world.
So one person evaporates, one doesn't. So how does that work with, like, I'm actually going to have to go, but I guess I'll just ask you a question. If I ever talk to you again, maybe you can explain it. But Hebrews, I think it's 9 verse 27. I don't have it open in front of me just at that moment. But it says that for man it's appointed to die once and then judgment. But I guess in the 1,000-year paradise, the people in the containment units are actually dying twice. So anyways, it's kind of weird.